anyị na Chineke nna nke pụrụ ihe niile. Onye ọ bụ naanị ya na-azọpụta. Onye ọ bụ naanị ya bụ okwu ya niile bụ ihe na amen. Anyị wee na-asị ezi ebube dị ngọzi na n'ụtụtụ na ịja mma na nsọpụrụ site n'ebighị ebi ma ruo n'ebighị ebi. Ise, ise, ise.
Welcome, my amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are joining from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed. If you are joining me from Africa, Asia, Europe, America, Australia, or any part of the world, I thank you very much for your contribution. Please, each time you watch my video, go to the comment section and put down your comment. That is
well, straight to the point. What do you make of the series of meetings that some sitting governors and politicians and Nigerian leaders had in London last week? Before London, we had heard of meetings in Spain, in Turkey. In fact, someone was joking that one of these is maybe these politicians will go and have a meeting in Russia ahead of the 2023 elections. And some people say, why can't political issues be discussed inside Nigeria? Why can't politicians resolve their differences inside Nigeria that they want to lead?
Well, it was Fela Anikulapo Kuti of blessed memory who sang a song. We generally reduce the title to Alaji Alaji. And in that song, he spoke extensively of how Nigerians are essentially ruled by strangers. Our rulers have destroyed practically everything that used to be good about Nigeria. Their doctors are abroad. Their children's schools are abroad. Some of them sees their dentists abroad, so there shouldn't be any surprise in having them junket outside Nigeria every time they are seeking solutions, quote and unquote, to Nigerian problems. So in speaking to the fact that they will meet everywhere but in Nigeria, we must also factor in the fact that these are people who might live in Nigeria, but their homes are actually not in Nigeria. Their homes are either in the south of France, on the Potomac, anywhere but in Nigeria, because they've made Nigeria practically unbearable and unlivable for those unfortunate enough to be trapped in here and have nowhere else to go. So our situation is, we might look to the fact that they're having meetings and settling disputes outside our shores. But the reality is, when you consider the truth of the fact that they actually don't live here, they are allergies, they are strangers to us. They cannot feel our pains, more or less. There is very little by way of empathy. Some of them will lose elections, relocate to their homes abroad, and then they will come back a few months to elections. So there is really nothing new. It's just that the election season has tended to highlight these issues for us. They are just doing what is normal to them. They don't live here.
So what should the people do as regards this? Why should people stop this, shaving their heads in their presence, not even in their absence here? How can the people stop this?
You see, I have always believed that it is up to the Nigerian people to identify exactly what their own interests are and to stop waiting for those who are the afflictors to tell them what the problems are. Let me give you a case in point. Every time we speak to oil theft in Nigeria, and the Nigerians have failed to connect the tissues, if you consider the fact that it is not the oil thief that is carrying jerry can, that is stealing all the oil that has made us impecunious. We must probably, in fact, I believe we are the only oil producing country in the world that is going through the current economic hardship that we are experiencing in Nigeria. And that is not by accident. The people themselves have not managed to connect the issue to the point where they now begin to demand answers. Sri Lankans don't have two heads, but they understand the issue, they are connected to the issues plaguing them, and they have sought to find solutions to their problems by holding their rulers accountable. We don't hold our rulers accountable, and that is why they ride roughshod all over us, because we do not connect the cause and the effect. The elections are coming. If the Nigerian people will take the time to look at what ails them, and then objectively look to those who might resolve their problems, then perhaps these issues will become a little less disconnected as they are. But as long as the Nigerian people continue to wait for those who are the ones afflicting them to be the ones to resolve their problems, we'll continue on this long journey to nowhere.
Adesua?
Okay.
Yes. Well, Dele, when you listen to the trio of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Governor Otom of Benue, and of course Governor Ikpeazu of Abia State on their return from London, they say their consultations, which is ongoing in London, is in the interest of Nigeria and Nigerians. Can you hazard if there's any guarantee whatsoever that there's anything in these consultations with party primaries long closed and campaigns about to begin? Can you hazard any guess as to what really might there be in for Nigeria and Nigerians in these consultations? Because they've told us that no matter what it is, they are willing to form alliances with anyone.
Look, all the alliances that have ever been formed by the Nigerian ruling class, or the political class as you would like to describe them, have never been in the interest of the Nigerian people. Look, enlightened selfish interest would ordinarily galvanize a people to do better than they are. But our people have taken out the enlightenment in any interest. It is almost always about their own selfish interest. So Wike, and all of them, they can sit down and be meeting, but the Nigerian people are the last persons that they are considering in their consultations. They might be talking about who gets what ministry in the event that A steps down for B or C supports D, but you can be certain that they are not thinking of the people. Recently, I believe it was Emirates that first decided it wasn't coming to Nigeria because they couldn't repatriate their funds. The speed with which the Nigerian government has sought a resolution of that impasse should tell you exactly what matters to them. How many Nigerians fly? Then consider the number of Nigerians who have been affected by ASU strike for the last 5 months or more. And then consider all the other things that have plagued Nigerians but that have never really mattered to those who claim to be our leaders. It is about time that we look beyond their words and focus on their actions. The actions of those who purport to rule Nigeria does not suggest at any point that their interests coincide with those of the people they claim to rule or to lead. It is always about their own unenlightened, selfish interests. All you need to do at any point is look to those things that Nigerians consider important: security, food security, affordability of food. All those things that makes life tolerable and livable, they've become completely absent in the Nigerian space. But this does not appear to occupy the attention of our rulers. What you find is that they are busy junketing all over the place, consulting, us trading simply because of power, not necessarily because of any altruistic reasons. The fact is, if you're looking to resolve a problem that is localized, why do you need to go all the way to England to get that done? And these consultations, who are they consulting? They're consulting themselves. They're not consulting the Nigerian people. So if you are not consulting the Nigerian people and you are looking to resolve Nigerian problems, I wonder exactly who you are consulting. So let us first of all strip these lies away and focus on the truth. These junkets have nothing to do with the Nigerian people. It is essentially about their own unenlightened, selfish interest, and they can dress it in any garb that they care to. It is up to us not to buy these lies, but to focus on the evidences of our own senses, which should suggest to us by now that our interests simply do not matter.
Okay. Well, in one of those photographs being shown, there's a confirmation that President Olusegun Obasanjo was also in London. met with Mr. Peter Obi, met with members of the Wike group, and also with some of those other governors, Wike himself. Now, people have been speculating what could possibly be President Obasanjo's interest in those meetings in London. He offered a clarification yesterday that he doesn't have a special candidate for any office, but that he's pursuing a national agenda. Now, he has not yet provided the details, but what's your take on, President Olusegun Obasanjo's involvement in these meetings? Don't forget the fact that he now plays the role of a statesman.
Well, it's a good thing that you ended the question by using that word, statesman. As far as I'm concerned, the word statesman in Nigeria is a special word reserved for those who have acquired impunity to deal with Nigerians as they care. Now, if he's playing the role of statesman and he doesn't have any special candidate, the first question we need to be asking ourselves is this. This man ruled Nigeria for 8 years. Exactly what happened in those 8 years that he instituted that has outlived his tenure and that has affected the lives of Nigerians in a manner to have ensured that good governance followed in his wake. So if General Obasanjo is busy junketing around, and I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday he was in Minna to see the other two in Minna, you begin to understand very quickly that it is about class preservation. The Nigerian people who have been the victims of the misrule of all these people who have ruined Nigeria are constantly yearning for change. If you now allow that yearning for change to go without finding ways to perhaps tailor it, control it, what would happen is that anarchy will follow, because the Nigerian people who have been the victims of this misrule would eventually rebel. So if General Obasanjo is moving around, it's a self-preservatory move. Yes, he can move around. He's a Nigerian just like any one of us, but he does not have more than one vote. I have only one myself. The best they can do is to seek to ensure that there is an orderly transition of power and that Nigeria remains one. Whether it remains one to the benefit of the Nigerian is another ballgame entirely. Whether their exertions are meant to benefit the Nigerian or their own class is another ballgame entirely. But these are issues that Nigerians have to find the capacity to discern so that we do not begin to conflate the interest of General Obasanjo, General Babangida, or General Abdulsalami for that matter, or those of the political class with those of the Nigerian. The interests are not necessarily the same. I don't believe they are. But it is up to us as Nigerians to identify our own common interests and then pursue them. That might very well be in conflict with the interest of General Olusegun Obasanjo or those of the other rulers of Nigeria. It is up to us. He is protecting his own class interests, but those interests do not necessarily coincide with those of Fatima on the street, hawking and trying to eke out a living, or that of Chukudi, or that of Aminu, or that of Dele. Our interests are not the same. The diarrhea of the monkey is not the concern of the baboon. It is up to us to stop having them tell us what is in our own interest. We should identify our own interest.
But Dele, Fatima, and Chukwuma end up voting for these people for their own selfish interests. See, Dele, Fatima, and Chukwuma end up being their trumpeters on social media. Dele, Fatima, and Chukwuma end up being their advocates that will fight tooth and nail and even kill other people for these people. What role should the Nigerian people too be playing? Because a lot of people will say, you can say they are owners of Nigerians, but the group of Nigerian people who have handed this country over to them, they're complicit.
You see, there is always cause and effect. When the people have had ignorance weaponized against them for over 30 years, when poverty has equally been weaponized against them for the better part of the last 25 to 30 years, what you find is that their capacity to discern is seriously compromised. And when the capacity to discern is compromised, you then have your enemy pointing out your enemy. And that is the situation the Nigerian is faced with. The exertions of this particular daily has constantly been to ensure that the Nigerian people retain the capacity or acquire the capacity to discern what is in their own enlightened, selfish interest. The role of religion in making sure that the Nigerian remains supine is not to equally be underplayed. But we must understand that the victims are constantly in need of those who are able to help them to look beyond the immediate 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira, or even the gratification of, okay, is my tribesman that is there, or is my co-religion is there. The afflictions are common to all Nigerians. It's not like, okay, let's take for instance the people of Katsina. The gentleman, so the general in office now, his 8 years will soon be gone. Exactly what has it bettered for the people of Katsina, or any one of those who were busy shouting Sai Baba less than 8 years ago? What has it bettered for them? Wars, insecurity, untold pain, hunger, poverty. But these are the reasons why we cannot give up on seeking to explain to the people to look beyond all these dividing lines and to then identify the common interests which should bind them and take them beyond the divisions that these rulers or ruiners have put in place. It is easy to blame a man who has been conditioned with hunger and ignorance. The Bosebe, you give a man 10,000 naira because he sees no value to the vote in the first place. Having no value for the vote makes him more receptive to the token for which he sells the vote. But if we take the time, and I must commend your station, if we continue to take the time to explain to the people exactly what they ought to be looking out for, then it becomes that much easier for them to be armed, sufficiently armed, with sufficient information to take enlightened decisions instead of the knee-jerk reactive decisions that they are conditioned to take by the hunger and the poverty. Before you even begin to consider the weaponized ignorance. He's reading newspapers published by his enemies. He's listening to news uttered by his enemies. His enemies sit at the pulpit, whether that be in the mosque or that be in the church, and is constantly pointing him at who we want him to believe are his true enemies. These are the reasons we are in the mess we are in. It is the inability to connect cause and effect.
This one?
Okay, two things, Dele. Yes, I just want to follow up on what you've just said, weaponization of poverty and weaponization of ignorance. So would you say you have seen enough to convince you that we're about to say politics of issues devoid of toxicity and violence? Also, I wanted to take you up on some of the reports we're getting from these meetings that are held in London. For instance, conditions given by the Wike camp to Atiku camp, that Atiku should run for just one term should he become the next president. How binding would that be on Atiku? I mean, can he be bound by words of mouth? How legitimate would that be?
You see, the key problem we have here is that our rulers constantly presume that they have retained the capacity to shave our heads, even in our absence. So they have not only flown to London, they have begun to share offices and ascribe limitations to tenure in the absence of the Nigerian people. That should give you an idea of just how much impunity governs Nigeria and just how what we call democracy, at least in the eye of our rulers, is actually not a democracy. They still believe that they own the imperative to determine what happens, regardless of what we, the people ourselves, regardless of what we think or how we vote. If our votes truly count, these are issues that should form the basis of electoral campaign, not issues of negotiations between those who believe that they are the owners of Nigeria. If you own a country, You're then suggesting that that country is essentially a slave plantation, and you decide exactly what happens at any point in time, even when we might pretend that we are a democracy. Issue-based campaign is almost impossible to pursue when you have people who are led essentially by primordial sentiments. But it does not mean that we will give up on this. In due course, some of us will pick sides. We'll come out in the open, and our position will not be governed by the person's religion. We will not be swayed by anything outside of the issues that afflict all of us. But insofar as these people sit down and arrogate to themselves the right to determine the direction of Nigeria without due consultation with the Nigerian people, the people themselves ought to wake up and begin to understand that they are the lowest indices in the reckoning of those who are asking to rule us. It's up to us. We are the ones who would have to wake up. It is not the duty of the oppressor to free those they oppress. It is the duty of the oppressed to throw away the chains of oppression. It is up to us. I can't blame them. Yorubas will say, who will not take advantage of the weak. It is in human nature to take advantage, but it is also up to us who is being taken for a ride, who are constantly oppressed and suppressed, to properly identify the path to our freedom and then face it.
Okay, Dele, quickly, talking about issue-based campaign, I guess there's a role for civil society to play in this regard. Yeah. Only last week, the Nigerian Bar Association gave the platform of its 62nd annual general conference to the presidential candidates to express their views. I assume that you followed that. We had Atiku there, we had Shetima representing Asiwaju Tinubu, we had Mr. Peter Obi, we had Justice Philip Umeadi of ABGA, we had Adebayo of Social Democratic Party, we had other candidates, at that event. What's your assessment, at least looking at, some of these candidates and their performance? I don't want to ask you about the NBA conference, but if you have a view on that, well, you may.
The truth of the matter is that the NBA did not do well. I am of the opinion that if you have decided that you are opening up the space for presidential candidates and even their surrogates, such as Shetima, to come and speak at the conference, it should have gone the whole way. There is no basis, for instance, for the non-invitation of Omoyele Sowore. And then another thing that you have to look at is this. The NBA opening up its space to these people, as the NBA deemed it fit to interrogate their claims and to also intervene in the civic space to guide the Nigerian, I wouldn't say they have. What has happened is that the NBA has merely abandoned the Nigerian people largely to the vagaries of the Nigerian rulers and calling politicians to come to the NBA conference without seeking to interrogate their claims or interrogate what has happened in the past in their record. It goes to no issue as far as I'm concerned. Not inviting Yele Sowore even damages it even more, because your readiness to listen to all shades of opinion tells us just how impartial you are. But to close the door to a candidate and then begin to select others, if they had even invited only Atiku, Tinubu, and Obi, I might have understood that position, that maybe they are looking at the three leading candidates, but they invited the SDP gentleman. Why should it now be beyond the pale to invite Yele Sowore to that place? Beyond the non-invitation of Yele, I really see nothing to comment on in relation to the invitation of all these presidential aspirants.
Will it be correct then to say that Omoyele Sowore is your favorite candidate?
If we're following ideology, I should be supporting Yele Sowore. But there is an issue that I believe needs to be addressed. Nigeria claims to be a federation, And one of the foundation of that federation is federal character. That federal character didn't come recently. It's something that has been in our constitution as far back as 1954. Going by that, as far as I'm concerned, I cannot look beyond an Igbo candidate in this race, and thanks to God, there is an eminently qualified Igbo candidate in this race, and that is the person I will be supporting.
That's Peter Obi.
Yes,
to be precise.
to be precise, that's the person I will be supporting in the coming election.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, looking at the coming election, what do you fear the most about 2023 elections?
Absolutely nothing. Because what's the point of fear? Fear is merely a petrifying source. It goes to the root. Petrify means that you become rooted to the spot. I am excited about the coming election. I'm excited by the energy of the youth who have been given hope by Peter Obi's ambition, or shall I say, his candidacy. Nigeria had become a hopeless place over the last 7 years, completely shorn of hope. The Buhari presidency has sucked up all the energy, all the hopes of the Nigerian people, and not everybody is going to be able to escape Nigeria. Not everyone is going to be able to run. If we are not going to run away and we are not to descend into violence, we would have to be given hope in one form or the other. And the only candidate that has energized the youth and given them hope in this season is Peter Obi. If that hope is dashed, if the Nigerian state contrives to take away what appears to be the only reason that the Nigerian youth wakes up in the morning with hope in his heart, then there will be reasons to be afraid. There will be several reasons to fear, because hope denied provokes violence. Nigeria is already violent enough as it is, but to now take away the hope that there might be some change at the end of this process, that is to be feared. Other than that, no fear.
So if that happens?
I am not sure that Nigeria is prepared for what is likely to happen if the people's votes are stolen or if their will is discounted. Let us be clear. NSAS was essentially a protest of the hopeless. The only thing that appears to have energized the same people who were largely involved in that struggle is the candidacy of Peter Obi. They've been silenced in terms of noise-making and they are fighting. No, everybody is facing the election. You will see a bit of exuberance that has been mistaken in some quarters for the obedient movement being combative, but that is because they've been rendered hopeless. This is the only thing they are holding on to. So for me, it's going to be an interesting time. The coming 5-6 months will be very, very interesting, but the only thing to be feared is anyone who is thinking that they might be able, at one level or the other, to truncate the hope of the Nigerian people. Other than that, there is nothing to be feared.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you, and remember, blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.